called Takeover. The 100-year war for the soul of the GOP and how conservatives can finally win it. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce a good friend, Richard A. Viguerie.
Thank you, Mallory. I jokingly refer to myself as 003, in that I've been active at the national level in the conservative movement longer than every living conservative except for two others. Dr. Lee Edwards at the Heritage Foundation, and who can guess number 001? Very good. Go to the head of the class. Phyllis Schlafly.
You were among. My third.
I wrote the book that Mallory referenced, Takeover, because I've been at this for most of the literally 102 years this war has been going on. I've been involved at the national level, as I said, for the majority of that time. And in my opinion, it deals with the most important political battle in America. And it's not between Republicans and Democrats. The most important political battle in America is inside the Republican Party. And it's literally 102 years old. War, 1912, Teddy Roosevelt seeks the Republican nomination for president, fails, goes across the street, starts a third party, splits the Republican vote, allows Woodrow Wilson with 42%, less than 42% of the vote, to become president. And we've been battling that wing of the party ever since. And in my opinion, sometimes they look like Teddy Roosevelt, sometimes it's Alf Landon or Wendell Willkie or Tom Dewey or Eisenhower or Nixon or Ford or McCain, Bob Dole, Romney, John Boehner today, Mitch McConnell, Eric Cantor. And we've been losing because, in my opinion, of those leaders. The Republican, thank you. The Republicans lost the Congress in 2006. They lost the White House in 2008. In my opinion, having nothing to do with the Harry Reids of the world, the Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, had everything to do with the failed, immoral, corrupt leadership of the Republicans. And every time they are the face of the opposition to the Democrats, that's what you get. In 2010, we score, the Republicans, the biggest victory they've had in 75, 80 years. And the big government Republicans are nowhere to be seen. The face of the opposition to the Democrats in 2010 is Rush, Hannity, Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Marco Rubio, the Tea Party. You know, that's the face of the opposition. People like that. In my lifetime, which is a long time, 4 big Republican victories, and only 4, all led by constitutional limited government principled conservatives. Reagan in 80, Reagan in 84, the Gingrich Revolution, Contract with America in 1994, and the 2010 Tea Party election. So, and we're like the biblical Jews who had to wander through the desert for 40 years until that generation of failed, flawed leaders had passed from the scene. As conservatives, we're not going to get to the political promised land until we get new leaders. And we just, I paraphrase James Carville, who in 1992, remember, said, "It's the economy, stupid, it's the economy, stupid." So I say to conservatives, it's the primaries, stupid, it's the primaries. And if we focus on the primaries in 2014 and in 2016, I think we can be governing America by 2017. We're that close. And I've been involved in the movement long enough to have seen darkness of biblical proportions. You don't know what losing is like. 1964, Lyndon Johnson's has got 75% majorities in the House and the Senate. There's nothing that they want to pass that doesn't get passed. I was there in 74 when Nixon resigned, 76 when Carter is elected. You know, I mean, we didn't have the Tom McClintock and the Steve Kings here and Rush, and we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all of these things that we've got for us now, Fox Television, etc. But we persevered. We were a remnant, and we're beginning to see the benefits of it now. And I think if we focus on the primaries, we're really within a few years of taking over the Republican Party and governing America. And how much time? How do I tell it here, Mallory? When it beeps, I'm off. Okay. In the book Takeover, I talk about not only the history, where we are now, but how we can be governing America within just a few years. And you've got to understand where we've come from if you want to chart a path forward. Since it hadn't beeped yet, I'll just say real quick that we've heard about the Reagan Revolution, the three legs of the conservative movement. We now have a fourth leg, in my opinion. That's the Tea Party movement is the fourth leg, and I think with those four together, we're poised to govern America. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go to our lovely panel, and I'll start off with the lovely, talented, beautiful David Asman. Wow. Microphone, and let me make sure it goes on. Take this.
Okay. I think most people in the media who covered the 2010 election were simply amazed that the people that successfully rallied the Tea Party into a political movement, a winning political movement, were not properly utilized in 2012. I mean, it was even correspondence friends that I have on the left of the political spectrum who cover politics were asking me, because I was kind of their insider for what's happening with conservatives, why it was that this probably the most successful rallying of a political movement, left or right, in a midterm election wasn't used in the following election, the general election. And I'm just wondering how much of that was due to the efforts by Democrats to squash that movement, namely using the IRS and other official government executive measures to try to kill a political movement, which we can, in another forum, debate whether it was legal or not. And how much of that was due to a specific desire on the part of Republican leadership to squash the Tea Party movement?
That's a great question, David, and I believe it's very clearly a decision by the big government Republicans, because we have a very different worldview. Angelo Codevilla, a wonderful conservative writer, wrote a book in 2010 called The Ruling Class, and he talks about the 25-30% of the ruling class and the 70-75% that's the country class. That's us here. And in that book, he talks about how it's not only Democrats, but it's Republicans as well, a part of the ruling class. So much so that they saw us as the enemy. Just recently, in the New York Times, Mitch McConnell talks about he must crush the Tea Party. That's his words, crush the Tea Party. John Boehner talks about the knuckle draggers. We're knuckle draggers. If you haven't been called a knuckle dragger lately, that's us. So Steve and Tom. So they are the our political opponents, and that's why I wrote the book, because I don't think that conservatives really realize that we've had our political guns pointed at the wrong target. I mean, our opponent really is the big government Republicans, and we are that close to taking it over. So I think that the answer is it was our own Republican leaders. Real quick, like Mallory, let me just say that one of Reagan's many geniuses is that he united all the voting blocs of the Republican Party: the social conservatives, the economic conservatives, the foreign policy conservatives, which meant the anti-communists, and he brought them all into the genius of Boehner and Mitch McConnell is they declared war on the base of the party. I mean, how outrageous is that?
Carrie, I won't even preface it.
Okay, thanks. So, Richard, you are a pioneer in what you've done, and I'm sure your knuckles are not bloody from dragging, but from all the fights you've been in. So, but I want to get your take on just sort of the demographics of where the country is headed in terms of, the Hispanic boom, African Americans, being totally in the bag for Obama. How can the conservative movement reach out to these populations as we see that this is sort of where the country's headed?
Well, first we get new leaders. We have leaders that are inarticulate, and they don't share the views and the values of the majority of Americans. And Romney didn't know how to talk to the grassroots Americans, nor did Bob Dole or John McCain. So we need articulate leaders who share the views and the values of not only white America, but Hispanics and African Americans and Asians. And when we have leaders that will address their issues, for example, something like 80% of Hispanics share our views and values on the social issues. They are just not an issue in the 2012 campaign, nor in the 2008 campaign. So until we make these issues, front and center, we're being attacked for them. And Mitch Daniel did great damage to the Republican cause in 2011. He said we need to push the pause button. Don't talk about the social issues. All the Republican leaders heard him. Obama didn't hear him, and Harry Reid and Pelosi. So they began to attack, and there was no reply. And so when you have an attack that does not get answered, you're going to get creamed. You're going to be branded. And until we respond with a proper message, in 2013 Virginia election, where I live for governor, Terry McAuliffe, a radical liberal Democrat, believed that you should be able to have an abortion for sex selection. You wanted a boy, you're going to have a girl. You can not only have an abortion for sex selection, but I, the taxpayer, must pay for it. That went unknown, and the voters went to the polls on election day not knowing that.
Mr. Martosko.
Richard, I'm tempted to ask you something about Reagan's 11th commandment or maybe hanging together versus hanging separately, but we'll leave that for now. Last year you did something very interesting. Among all the things you did, one thing that caught my attention was this $10,000 prize that you offered and then actually awarded, which was impressive. And if I recall, the idea was to get the best idea in the country for how the right could reclaim control of the Republican Party. Now, I have two questions about this. First of all, are the people who won this prize actually doing anything beyond navel gazing at this point? I mean, are they actually doing anything? And second of all, what were the worst ideas you got?
Boy, I didn't see that one coming, David.
I'm officially now British, so I just surprise people.
David's referring to something called the Liberty Prize, and we tried that, and we had over 1,000 people to reply. And unfortunately, David, most of them didn't really get with the program. Most of them were very articulate, or reasonably articulate, in calling the Democrats names. And it was mostly venting their spleen. But this idea of crowdsourcing for solving a problem is a big issue out there, a big deal, and lots of people are using it with very expensive prizes into the millions in solving problems. In fact, most people don't know that Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic solo for the first time, in answer to a prize. It was a $25,000 prize for the first person that did it. So it's a long idea, been out there for a long time. Michael Patrick Leahy won half the prize, and he's a Tea Party leader there at the beginning, and he is very actively engaged in implementing his plan. And the other person, we split the prize, it was a lawyer in Arizona who emphasizes what I emphasize is grassroots organizing, taking over the Republican Party. Phyllis Schlafly talks about the most powerful political position in America is the precinct chairman. And so you're not going to go wrong following either one of those plans, which is contained in the book. Michael Patrick Leahy's plan, which is organize the Tea Parties, and the other one is take over the Republican Party.
I'd like to take some more questions for the panel, but I think we're going a little long on our answers, Mr. Viguerie. So I'm going to take one question from the audience.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Richard, Herb Stupp, good to see you again.
Hey, Herb.
If you were getting going, first of all, you sent out more political direct mail probably than anyone in the history of the world.
7 billion and counting.
Yeah, so that beats McDonald's, I think. But if you were getting going now as a 30-year-old, would you go into direct mail, the internet, or something else?
No,
Great question.
Good question, Herb.
And short answer, please.
People are enamored with the internet, and it is the wave of the future. We haven't figured it out, quite frankly. We will figure it out. It might be tomorrow. It might be 5 years from now. The workhorse for marketing politically, in my opinion, is still direct mail. The average organization is bringing in 3, 4, 5% through the internet. And that'll change, but it's going to be 15, 20 years down the road.
The book is The 100-Year War for the Soul of the GOP and How Conservatives Can Finally Win It. Take over. Are there some books outside?
I don't think so, but your favorite online bookseller or your bricks and mortar bookseller?
It is
has them.
terrific. It is worth reading, and I strongly urge you to read it. There's only one book I like better right now.
I can't imagine which one that is. Big tip.
Richard, is there a website?
I have a website, conservativehq.com, and this is the only website that is totally, completely devoted to launching, rebuilding, and focused on the conservative movement. If there are terrible things happening out there, unfortunately, we're not going to cover it. We're only going to cover the conservative movement. So if you want to be involved in building, launching, and taking over the Republican Party, this is the website, conservativehq.com. Thank you.